Hey, welcome to A Foreigner Abroad, episode 2. This is from a new location because it turns out my internet provider don't really like it if you forget to pay the bill and they cut my internet. So thankfully, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend very kindly lent me their apartment. Very kindly left quite on the proviso that I show off my sister-in-law's artwork. Ooh, nice. For sale. Okay, so my guest today is an old friend of mine, known her about 10 years, called Camille Davila. She is, so last week we had Ben on, and Ben's brilliant, but he doesn't have his own Wikipedia page like Camille does. So I'm excited about this one. She's a fascinating person. So let's let her in. Connecting to audio. Hey, oh, she's on her side. Hey, Camille, there we go. Hey, how are you? Oh, still connecting to audio. There we go.
There you go. Hi. I always have to flip I have you on my phone and I have to flip it. This happens with every Zoom meeting. I have to flip it over and then flip it back. Otherwise I'm sideways.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird. So you look different to the last time I saw you.
Yeah, probably.
Nice. I like the look. I like it.
Thank you.
You're a rock star. I suppose.
Well.
Fits in really, doesn't it? And I like the fact you've got a guitar in the background. It's like absolutely look the part now. How's it going? I haven't spoken to you for years.
I know, it's been a long time. I think the last time I saw you was in Norwich when you were visiting with someone.
Like 4 years ago.
Yeah, God, has it been that long? Oh my God. Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
How's your cat? Before we start anything, the important questions. How's your cat?
She is. I just had to look to make sure the door was cracked open. Otherwise, I'd be interrupted probably because at some point, maybe she'll emerge. We've got the heating on because it's freezing at the minute. And so she's in a radiator bed. When we put the heating on, she goes to the radiator bed and she's like a lizard on a hot rock. She just doesn't move.
Staying there forever. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, I'm not in my house at the moment because otherwise my cats would also be coming and we could introduce them. We could.
Say hello.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so where are you? You're still in Norwich, aren't you?
No, I'm in Cromer.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
I moved to the coast, which is lovely. I'm very happy that, not that there's anything wrong with being in Norwich during lockdown, but I do like being able to go for runs without having to dodge loads of people, and there's a lot of countryside surrounding this area, so you can really be
and I imagine
out and on your own.
Pretty nice as well. And I imagine the beach as well is a definite bonus.
It is. It's really beautiful. It's very nice.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've obviously lived everywhere. Basically. I was thinking you're probably the most multicultural person I know. So you're Mexican American, lived in California. Moved to Manchester.
Liverpool.
Sorry, Liverpool. Sorry, I'm making that mistake. I know they're rival cities. Liverpool. Sorry. I thought it was Manchester. And Norwich and Norway. So
Yes, and with a few places in between as well. I've moved. I think at one point I realized that there was one point that I'd moved sort of, if I put it with my age, it had been one time per year. It kind of had balanced itself out. But now that's changed because I've settled, and I think I spent so much time in Norfolk that sort of canceled out my madness with that.
Is Norfolk the place you've lived the longest in?
It is, actually.
So where do you see yourself as being from? If you were to go somewhere like on vacation, let's say you meet someone in New Zealand and they say, "Oh, so Bill, where are you from?" What do you just say, like, long story? Or where would you say you're from?
Earth. No, I say that it's one of those things where I'm like, I was born in California, but I've lived, half my life elsewhere. Because when I was born in Southern California, but we moved loads in Southern California. Then I moved to Northern California. I also lived in Portland, Oregon, the state above California, for a little while. back to the Bay Area. So I was in, the East Bay and also San Francisco. And then I came to Europe when I was 20, although I actually did 6 months in the UK when I was 17 as well. So yeah, and from there it just went really, really crazy. So it's even when people are like, "Oh, where in America are you from?" And I'm like, "California." They're like, "Where?" And I'm like, "No, it's not a where in California. I moved the whole time. I've been moving since I was born, so it's really hard to like pinpoint any place." But that's the easiest thing for me to say is just say, okay, I was born in California, and then I've moved around.
Your family is still, or your brother is still California, isn't he? So
one of them isn't. I've got two brothers. One is now moved to Traverse City, Michigan, and my older brother is still in California. He's in Santa Cruz.
Is that Ben?
No, that's Justin.
Justin, okay, good. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know either of your brothers, but I know Ben is also a singer-songwriter, and he did
right.
Brilliant photosynthesis song that I can't find. I've been trying to find it for ages. It's not on the internet anymore. I can't find it on the internet anymore.
Oh God, I bet I can track it down and send you a copy. He'd probably be fine with that.
Oh, honestly, that was brilliant. Learn a lot. Learn about photosynthesis from it as well. So how do you think it started your traveling bug? You're just used to it and then moved away?
Yeah, I think I was really used to it because my dad didn't move as many times, but obviously his family had immigrated. He was actually born in the United States. He was the first. His older siblings were born in Mexico. Then he and a few younger siblings were born in the US just right after his parents had relocated. And my mother, she always just moved. I mean, she's a gypsy really. So she's constantly moved. So I think because I moved around so much, it was always second nature to me. So it made sense really. Like, okay, I'm here for how many, like, okay, now it's time to go someplace else. And even now that I've been in Norfolk, even though we were like, this is it. My husband and I were like, this is the place, because he's as bad as I am. It's like, this is where we will have our forever home. And we're already getting itchy and looking at other places.
So where's next? Where's next, do you think? Oh, you got your eye on Ecuador. Come see me in Ecuador.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We do actually we'd like to travel, and definitely South America is top of our list of places to travel to.
There we go. Sorted. Well, okay. Well, we'll organize this afterwards because people don't want to watch us organize. But come see me. It's brilliant. Brilliant. We'll do that. Okay. Brilliant. So what was this? So you've lived in, oh, sorry. One thing else I wanted to say. One of the memories I have of you, or two memories, many memories, but two memories I have of you when we used to work together. I remember once we were in the car. I don't know if you remember. We're in the car going to a work event or something, and leaving on a jet plane by John Denver came on. And I remember saying, oh, I can't listen to this song without wanting to cry. And I was like, oh, me too. And I just remember sitting in silence with you, just listening to this song. And it was quite an emotional moment, I felt.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh no, yeah, it is. It is an emotional song. Oh, how nice. That's nice.
And also the other thing I remember, so I can't remember if you said it or if you wrote it on Facebook or something. It was a quote, something along the lines of, if you've lived abroad your whole life, or if you keep moving around the country, you'll never be complete again because you leave a bit of yourself in each place you live, or something along those lines, which.
Absolutely.
As well.
I love, that's one of those quotes, like, you have those things. It's just like one of my favorite, I love the book, The Four Agreements. I think it's my Bible. But I can never remember all four at once. And it always changes which one I forget, even though it's only four things. And that quote is kind of the same. It's my most favorite thing that I want to reference, but I always have to paraphrase it. I can never get it word for word. I'm like, something about that, if you live in two places, then your heart is one place. And it's really a good quote.
It's a really good quote. But I've had the same thing. I've always tried to and it doesn't quite have the same impact if you have to say, oh, it's something about this is, but it's so true though, isn't it? But also
it is.
Things get added to your heart as well, and you become just a completely different person from living everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is true. In fact, I think the one thing that is neat as well is that when you meet other people, who are expats, you immediately have a kinship with them. There's and it doesn't matter if they're from the same country as you, or if they're from a different country. If you are both living in separate countries and you just happen to meet them while you're traveling, whatever the case, if you meet somebody who's relocated to another country, it's like an immediate. Okay.
Oh yeah, so I know what you're going through. I know what the good parts. Okay, so obviously we can't speak to Camille Davila without talking about your music. Link in the description to Camille's website. Definitely listen to it. So obviously you've lived in various places we've gone through. How do you think living in those places has affected your music style? Have you taken obviously Norwegian influences to your music, or have you stuck to your?
Ooh, I've always been really influenced by a lot of different types of music, and from various places, artists all over the world, really. So I've never been, which is actually, it can be problematic. And I would say it was partially my reason for moving to Europe, was because when I was in California, because I had such an eclectic style and influences, it was actually slightly difficult to market. So I'd been signed to a record label there that, you know, did their best, and they ended up relocating to Berlin because the head of that label was German, and said, you know, you ought to go to Europe because you have more chances there. There's a bit more acceptance with people kind of not expecting you to be coming from one specific thing. That was at the time. California's music scene has changed completely since then. But yeah, I think I never feel like, oh, I listen to country music and I'm a country singer, or I listen to, you know, Mexican mariachi music, I'm that type of thing. I just like so many different things, and then that means that I end up making a mess musically, but hopefully it's listenable.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, I follow you on YouTube. I'm subscribed to you on YouTube, and yeah, it's always a different song coming on, and sometimes I know the song, or sometimes it's, I think the one you put up last week was a song from the 30s or something like that, from almost 80 years ago, or from 80 years ago. So completely strange song, but fantastic. Strange, of course.
Thank you. No, it was fun. It was written by, the lyricist of the song was the same lyricist who wrote Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. Nice. So, and I found the song by accident, and because it was actually 90 years old practically, because it was so old and because it was so beautiful, I just got really sort of sucked into it. And then I don't know, I get really into something, and then it becomes my whole universe, and I'm like, this is the thing, and then I'm like completely done with it and on to something else. The next one. Yeah.
Obviously, there's a really big music scene in Liverpool, and you were in Liverpool for quite some time, weren't you? And you played with some big bands there, or at least big in England sense. The Zootons, I think you played with. They played. Yeah, I had a residency at a club called the Kurova Club, and it was a super fun time where you hosted a night as an artist, and then you would invite people to play. And I happened to know them, and was very lucky in that they had just released they're done releasing and touring with their first album. They were right before they were going to release their second album, which was the one that had Valerie on it. And and they said and they played it pared down. It was the lead man with a guitar player and Abby on sax. So it was great, except for the fact that I had to play after them, which was awful because they packed the venue. The venue was so, there were people like in the street. And then, they finished their set, and I had to go on with my band afterward. And you just slowly see people looking at you like, who the hell are you? But it was good exposure. It was great. Yeah. No, Liverpool's got a fantastic music scene. I loved it. Yeah, fantastic. Who else did you play with? Because you were friends. I know you were friends with, or at least had contact with, Amy Winehouse as well.
Oh, she was the ex-girlfriend of a friend of mine. And I never played with her. No, but I met her a few times. Yeah. And it was strange. I met her when she was, I went and saw her play actually And it was earlier in her career. She was just phenomenal. I mean, it was like, and I wasn't really into that style of music at the time that she was playing, but I just was so floored by her. And she was funny and great. And then I went to California for a little while. And while I was there, I suddenly saw her on television, and she'd, you know, lost like 5 stone and just looked like insane. And I was going, wow, that happened quick.
But she got massive, like even
really fast,
like really big, really fast. And then obviously
I didn't think, I mean, I wasn't surprised in terms of how good she was, but it just, you know, a lot of fame has not that much to do with talent. So it was unexpected, not because her talent was through the roof, but it was just, she was so, you know, she was just kind of around. She'd be around Liverpool, and I had a couple of friends in London. She was around there, and you know, you just, when somebody like that just blows up overnight, you just think, wow, that's really weird. And she did look a bit like she'd been thrust into it a bit abruptly.
Yeah, she seemed to suffer a little bit with being thrust into it, poor thing, didn't she?
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, tragic. So obviously Liverpool, massive music scene, and then shortly after that Norwich, which is a very small music scene, I would imagine. How come you chose Norwich? Apart from obviously Norwich is the best city in the world for anyone listening. And but apart from that, how come Norwich?
Well, I had gone from Liverpool. I was in California for a bit, and I had put a band together there. And I brought that band to London to record an album. And the place that we were actually recording was in Norfolk, which is a studio called the Bakehouse Studios, which is just great. It's right on the North Norfolk coastline. And that was my introduction to that area. And it was so, and when I went into Norwich, the first time I went to Norwich, I didn't think much of it because I didn't see much of it. And the person that was hosting us just sort of brought us into like it was like the American burger restaurant or something. You know, if you're American, you're like, I don't want to see like an English
I want to see
burger place. It'd be like if you came to California and I took you to like an English pub, like Ye Old Pub, you'd just be going, oh no, this is not what I want to do. Anyway, but after I was spending more time there, I fell in love with it. And my husband and I were in London, and you know, London's like, it's expensive. It's a bit crazy. And we relocated to a couple of places, trying them out. And then we realized that Norwich was kind of perfect because we could get to London really easy. You know, obviously the cost is a lot less. And we had our friend who has the Bakehouse Studios, Ed Raisin, who I also play in a band with called Drunk with Pines. And so it just made sense to be there. And it's, you know, it's a great place to have as a base. It's a great place as well because it's easy to travel to and from, you know, and I don't think of distances. I think from being born in America, you know, getting a train that takes 3 hours is like, you know, that's local to me.
Yeah, I've spoke to Americans. And it's close. Yeah, I live next door, like 5 or 6 hours away. What?
Exactly. Like when I told my friends that I was moving in Norwich, I was moving to Cromer, one of them started crying, and I said,
so far away.
Why are you crying? It's like, I said, it's like 26 miles away. That's just like a marathon, you know, it's nothing. You know, you could run it if you're fit. Yeah, different sense of distance. Anyway, but that's, long story short, that's why it just was a really cool location. And Norwich is wonderful. It is a great city.
It's so good. I miss
Norwich. I know, I almost don't like saying that because I think it'll get too crowded. I'm like, yeah, it's okay.
Oh yeah, let's keep it quiet. Yeah, Norwich is right. No one else goes Norwich. Okay, and also so we spoke about those, and you also lived in Norway as well, which is again completely different to Norwich and Liverpool and California, and then the other end of the spectrum, Norway, very cold, presumably very cold. How was that? How did you find yourself living in Norway?
Well, my husband is Norwegian, and I met him when I was in Liverpool because we both studied music at the same university. And we just, after we'd been bouncing around, it was like, well, let's give Norway a try. I haven't lived there, and it just seemed like the right time to go. And Norway has an unbelievably good music scene. Especially Bergen is known for its music scene. There's a great music scene in Oslo as well, but I'm more familiar with the Bergen music scene. So when you'd asked me about where I was, we had a flat in Oslo, but I was traveling to Bergen, which is where my husband was born, and where his parents were. But I traveled there all the time because I was working musically on another album and my husband was going up there as well, because I did an album with him and another artist named Jonas Theis. So that was the album that had I Spy on it.
I Spy is so good.
That was recorded part of that was recorded. Jonas Theis we worked with in Oslo, but I had done like the backbone of the album in Bergen. So it was I was kind of going between those two places.
Yeah. Well, I had a look at Bergen. Before I spoke to you, I asked where you're from and I had a quick look at it, and so beautiful. What an incredible place.
Yeah, it is stunning. And my husband's parents live just up. If you look kind of at those pictures with all those beautiful houses, they're up, there's a big mountain behind that, and they're up on that, kind of up in the mountain. It's probably really one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
The rivals Norwich then. Almost.
Yeah, well, Norwich is beautiful, but not pretty beautiful. It's beautiful because it's a great place, and it does have really like stunning little streets and things, but Bergen is, take your breath. Bergen is like the supermodel of all places. It's like, it would be a bit like, I don't know, Norwich would be, Natalie Portman, and Bergen would be Iman.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who's the most incredible supermodel. Definitely Iman.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely stunning. I was having a quick look around it. So let's see how far away. So right on those islands on the east side. Was it cold? Looks like it must have been cold.
Oh, yeah. I should have asked you before we started if it's okay to swear, because it's hard to answer that question.
This is mainly for my university, but they are adults and they have heard me swear a lot. So yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, the only way to answer that question is fuck yes. It's fucking cold. It's not cold. It is fucking cold. It's like when I lived in, and especially Oslo, gets into like, I had to go one time early in the morning to get the subway, but it starts out, kind of like the tube. Some places you get it and it's above ground before it goes under. And I was waiting for it, and it was minus 25 degrees Celsius. And it felt like a billion little pit bull dogs, like microscopic pit bulls biting at your face all at once. It was bitter. Lots of snow. And Bergen doesn't get that much cold because of the Gulf Stream. So it mainly rains, but there it rains and rains and rains and rains and rains and rains again. I think it rains like 300 days a year or something.
So how does that change? If it's that cold, how does that change your living? What's the difference that maybe people wouldn't realize of living in the extreme cold? So obviously it's cold, you have to wear a jacket, but is there anything that maybe took you by surprise of course?
Yeah, several things. I mean, the first would be, I was amazed at how warm houses were. The inside of houses, for the most part, you are less cold in Oslo than you are in England, because they have such intense, could kill you cold, that they really have good insulation in their houses. They always have done, so it's a priority to keep. They have heated floors, things like that. So you're just like, whoa, I'm so warm when I'm inside. Whereas, it's like in Blighty, you're just like, why is it colder inside than
everywhere? Why am I always... Well, one of my big complaints about going back to England, I was living in Ecuador. Well, where I live in, it's always 23, 24 degrees. So it's not too hot and it's never too cold. It's perfect. It's always just the perfect temperature. But one of my complaints about England is that it's so cold, and that's not even talking about Norway cold, but for me, it's so cold. And then when you go into a shopping mall, they always put the heating on too much. And so I'm always in this constant go into a shop, oh, I've got to take off my jacket because if not, I'm going to sweat everywhere. Go outside, oh, put on my jacket again. And that always used to wind me up. That must be a nightmare.
Yeah.
You go into
the shops are in Norway, the shops aren't too hot. They're just nice. It's like they regulate their temperatures really perfectly. So that's one thing. And then I would say probably the other is just that they know how to dress. They're really, really good at knowing how to dress for the weather. And I mean, my husband says it. He said, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's bad clothing. And it's all about having a base layer of wool against your skin at all times. You know, they're really clever when it comes to navigating and managing through harsh winters and doing well. Everybody skis. And they're very close to nature, which is what makes that type of thing tolerable. You know, if you think of being in a dingy city when it's got awful weather, that's depressing. But they always have parks and lakes and places they go ice skating and skiing, and you know, they keep themselves very close to their nature. So
that's good. Well, I suppose if you're used to it, if you've grown up and it's always been cold, then it's just you learn to adapt, I guess, in England, because it's not cold all that often. We just panic. We panic. Oh no, we and then everyone always complains, why are we not ready for the cold weather? And then the cold weather goes away and people forget about it until next year when it gets cold again. And it's the same cycle again and again. So you mentioned the people there about Norway. Were they different in general?
Yes, definitely.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't think I've ever met, and this probably says more about me than it does Norwegians, about where I meet people. But I don't think I've ever met a sober Norwegian person. I was thinking about this, and I genuinely, I've met a good few, and I suppose, maybe I'm drink too much, but I suppose, I've only ever met drunk ones. So are they ever sober?
Yes. For example, go skiing, you'll probably bump in, or snowboarding or someplace in the snow, you'll bump into Norwegians and you'll see them sober while they're being active. They're very, they're people that might not drink for a month, but if they have a party and they go out, they really can go for it, and they can, think these are Vikings, they can really put it away. Their culture and the way that they drink is different. It is absolutely different to any culture I've experienced. And they are, I think it was a great thing for me to live there, because it was the first time. Making cultural observations about people when they live abroad is very difficult, because they're sort of a fish out of water, and their behaviors can seem a certain way. But when you are in a different country, you start to understand, what certain things are. I used to think Norwegians could sometimes be a bit not rude, but not overly courteous.
Yeah, maybe.
And then but when I was there, I realized that's, that is not. I'm pushing my American or English sensibilities onto them, and they have a totally different attitude. They're not offended if they bump into somebody and they don't say anything. The other person isn't like, yeah, that was a bit rude, and they just keep carrying on that way. It's that the other person doesn't expect that person to say anything. It would be odd if that person said anything. So it's normal there. And so once you're there, you adapt to it, and you think, okay, these people are wonderful. They're lovely. They just don't constantly go, oh, I'm sorry.
That's a big British thing, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry and thank you and please all the time. Yeah. No, to be fair, of all the Norwegians I've met, well, they've all been drunk, but they've all been very, very friendly with me. They've all been really happy to share a drink. Well, okay, so talking about drinking then, what is the drinking culture? How would a night out in Norway compare to a night out in England?
I mean, it's hard because most of the people that I know that are my age in Norway that I spent time with were all musicians. So that's also, it's hard to make, it might have been different if I'd been out with people, for example, like when we worked together at LJ, if I'd gotten to know people like that, I'd have a better observation. So I have to impose, And I think drinking cultures amongst musicians in every country are always going to be slightly more insane than any of the rest of the drinking culture.
Yeah, your whole life near bars and things, especially when you're doing residencies, drinking is just part of your job.
You get paid in alcohol a lot of the time. So, you know, they're like, sorry, there wasn't a good attendance, but, you know, we've given you a case of beer to take to your next location. You're like, great. Anyway, the drinking, you can expect to be awake for sunrise, for sure. You can just expect that you'll be out. And that could either be because you're in Norway in the summer and the sun doesn't set anyway. And so it's like, you didn't realize you were inside the whole time, and you come out and you're like, why is the sun out? And they're like, it's 3 a.m. Don't panic. It just doesn't go down. Or it's because if it's the winter, you are leaving. You have what you call a Vorspiel, which is the party before you go out. So you go to somebody's house, you drink as much as you possibly can to where you don't want to go out, and then you get dragged out.
Alcohol in Norway is expensive, isn't it, in bars? Or at least that's
exactly. So you drink as much as you can. The idea, I think, is that you drink as much as you can so that you won't spend all your money in the bar. But then when you get to the bar, you're so drunk that you do spend all your money in the bar. So then you do that, and then you go to what's called a Nachspiel, which is a night party. So that's the after party. And that's when you're at that person's house until probably 5 or 6 in the morning, until you can't believe that you're still moving. And then you get home, and then you wish for death.
Pretty much. It kind of sounds quite similar to the Ecuadorian way of doing it as well, then, because that's something.
Really?
Yeah, well, very similar. Although there's not so much of the pre-drinking in Ecuador, because in the bars it's very cheap. Definitely the going back to someone's house afterwards and like, I can't do this. I mean, I always think I drink a lot, and I do drink a lot, but not that much anymore. But I am able to drink a lot. But sometimes I'll go around people's houses, go to the after party, and they'll get out this oro, they call it, it's this strong alcohol, and just sit around and drink it until everyone's sort of sitting there like that. I can't do that. I don't like that. I can't vomit before I get to that point. So, yeah, it's different to England then.
It is. I never the whole time I was there ever threw up drinking though. But there's a sort of steadiness to it and a balance they seem to manage to have that's good. Not to say people don't throw up there, but I don't think it's people don't get excited if somebody throws us a bit like, oh, hold it together, keep it a bit more steady than that. It happens like anywhere else, but their expression for a hangover is a skollebank, which is like saying, your skull is crushed or something.
Hello. Gracias. Sorry, that was someone coming into my sister-in-law's apartment. Yeah.
Someone I hope.
Yes. Do you know what? I was worried though. It's my sister-in-law's father-in-law, and he was supposed to give me the keys, but he just left them in the door. Left them in the. Oh. So I came here an hour ago. No, shit, keys are in the door. That's dangerous. But I guess he was checking they hadn't been robbed. But anyway, that's good. Hadn't been. Yeah. So the British drinking culture, I think, is a lot less steady. It's a lot more go, 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 go. Okay, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. You have. I think it's just that it's kind of go, 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 but you have a cutoff point. It's like you really have this like really intense, like, that's it. And like the bar is like, that's it, everybody get out. And people don't go back to each other's houses. They just seem to like, maybe that happens sometimes, but a lot of the time it's just like everybody just goes home and then gets into bed.
Yeah. Strange that, isn't it? But that caught me out when I first came to Ecuador because I was young. I just assumed everywhere was like England. So we went out and everyone was drinking slowly. And I thought, I'll show off a little bit here. I'll drink quicker than everyone else. Oh, yeah, no, we drink loads. I was destroyed by about 11 o'clock and everyone else was just getting started. So that was an embarrassing week for me. Okay, so that's a night out. What about a typical day out? So maybe it doesn't include drinking. How would a typical day out be in Bergen?
I would definitely say the most common thing that I did with friends that didn't involve music going out in the day would always involve going into the mountain, you go into nature. I can't remember what they call it. but Procter, like you always go, you go on this little, all right, where should we go? Should we go up? You climb this mountain. Should we go on this mountain? Every time I'm with my husband's family at some mountain trip, and often it's just for the day. You take a little rucksack with some food in, and then you sit on top of the mountain, and you eat a sandwich, and you drink a Coca-Cola, and then you walk back down. It's really nice.
On top of the mountain.
Yeah. So you pack an extra layer. Yeah. It's nice in the summer. I mean, I did once swim in one of the lakes. It wasn't a lake, like a small body of water, on the top of one of the mountains. It was, though, the coldest water I've ever gone in. It was, I'd only very freshly been with my husband, and it was with all of his friends, and I really didn't want to be like a super girl and go like, oh, it's too cold, and they were all going in, and I was, I'm gonna be cool and make him proud, and all I could think while I was in there was I was gonna get hypothermia.
How long did you stay in there? What was the amount of time before you thought, I think I can get out now and not look like a massive girl?
I think I kind of just, what I realized was that if I spread myself over the surface, because the surface water was quite warm, and because the sun was hitting that, and it was just below the surface water that it was freezing. So as long as I didn't get, my body like this, so if I could just go kind of horizontal and float on the top, I managed to be in for an acceptable amount of time. And then once they started really jumping in the water and mixing it up, and it all got really cold, by that point I'd been in for a while. So I was like, it's
you had a good acceptable amount. Oh, so nice.
Yeah.
I have been to Norway, but I went skiing and we didn't really see too much of it, but I really want to travel around Norway and see the fjords and see the mountains and things. Maybe you and your husband come to Ecuador, and then me and my wife will come to Norway. We'll do a exchange program. We'll do something like that.
Perfect.
And what about, so going back to the people, so obviously you're not Norwegian. Did you ever feel an outsider being there, or were you kind of accepted in?
I felt, it's a good question. That's a really good question. I think for sure, I think that there's something with being, and I wonder if you'll agree here, when you're married to somebody in a very different culture and you're surrounded by their family. So I spent, and especially because we've spent so much time on this side of the world, I've spent so much time with his parents, and actually we lost his mother a couple of years ago, and it was hard. She's like a second mother to me. I'm very, very close with his family, enough to where they really feel like my family. But there are absolutely, it's been such a growing experience, because I think in the beginning, sometimes just the difference in cultures could be easy to misinterpret one another's intentions in certain situations, or you can just say something, you think everything's fine, the other person's like, I cannot believe you said that, and you're like, but I didn't mean anything, and it's just cultural differences all the time, and that gets less and less and less as you become more aware of what those differences are and how to navigate them. But I think in the beginning, a level of alienation and homesickness would ensue when you'd realize you'd like the Norwegian expression, you'd stepped in the salad. You'd accidentally put your foot in the salad, which means a bit of a faux pas, and you'd think, God, I really have, I'm a nice person, I didn't mean anything bad, and somehow you've offended somebody or something.
Yeah, I look back now.
Do you find the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I look back at how I was when I first moved here, when I was younger, and the things that I used to do, which would be normal in England, but just like, for example, I remember once my wife was out of town, I think she was my girlfriend at the time, and someone said to me, oh, do you want to come around for lunch then? And I went, nah, no, thanks. I'm busy. I've already made lunch. And apparently that was the really wrong thing to do. Apparently, obviously she knew I was foreigner, so I don't think she took that much offense. But apparently she said to my wife afterwards, I invited Russ around for lunch. And he just went, no. He just went, no, can't believe he did that. And my wife sort of gave me a talking to. Someone invites you around for lunch, you've got to go. Even if you've already come home, you've got to go. Oh, I was looking forward to my pasta that I've made.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. so many little, it's all those little tiny things, but they can at times add up. And I guess that would be an answer to your question when you feel like an outsider, you know, when you just start thinking, gosh, you know, there's you feel like there's so many of those little things all of a sudden, but they fade over time. You know, I don't feel like that now. I feel as at home in Norway as I feel here, as I feel at home.
What about away from the family though? Because I feel Ecuadorian now, and because I'm been accepted to the family, I've got accustomed to it. But every now and again, away from the family, something will happen that just reminds me you're not from here. Like the other day, I was in a work meeting, so with a load of people I didn't know, and for some reason, someone wanted to reference me. Like someone I didn't know who said, "Oh, blah blah blah," and he wanted to say me. My name tag was out, but he just referred to me as the gringo. I was like, you don't know my name. You don't. Like, I don't know who you are, but I've got a name tag. You can say Russ. You just refer to me as the gringo or the foreigner or whatever. So that kind of brought me back down to earth a little bit. Just remembering, I'm not.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's maybe because as well, it's going to be interesting how you feel in another 20 years, but because of how the age that I was when I left and from where I was. Huh?
You're not 20 years older than me, if that's
possibly.
You're definitely not.
No, but I'm saying from the time that I was young and traveling so much, I always was, like I moved schools a lot. I was always like in some other situation where I was a little bit of an outsider. It's been such a long time that I'm so used to it that it's like that when things happen like that, I don't notice them. I don't notice them as much. It's a little bit like when I go back to California, people say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I say, "Well, here." And they go, "Oh, you have an accent." And I'm like, and I laugh because when I'm here, people go, "Oh, are you American or Canadian?" First question that they ask if I'm in the grocery store or anything. And, I don't have to any English person, I just sound American. But to Americans, I sound English. When I'm in Norway, obviously, if I speak Norwegian, they know that I'm foreign because my Norwegian's pretty terrible. And so they'll automatically know that as well. So I'm very used to it at this point. It's just like second nature. I don't belong anywhere, which means I belong everywhere. So it's fine.
A much nicer way to look at it. Norwegian looks really difficult to learn. I don't speak Norwegian. No, I do speak Norwegian. Terve, I think is thank you, isn't it? Terve. No, that's Finnish. Sorry, I don't speak any.
I was going to say that sounded Finnish to me.
Yeah. No, sorry, I don't speak any Norwegian. Sorry, but it looks really difficult to learn. How did you find learning Norwegian? It's
well, I speak very bad Norwegian because I really, not to say my husband isn't a great teacher, but he taught me to speak Norwegian. I didn't study it formally, so my grammar is not good. I kind of, my construction of sentences is often wrong because I really had to just pick it up. I wasn't in Norway. There was a culture course that you take in Norway when you're going to stay there, where you get proper lessons. And I left right before doing that. So, but I did have a job in Norway. I worked for a short time at Zara's department store as a coordinator. and then I really needed to be sufficient enough in Norwegian, especially for dealing with customers on the floor. And so the thing that I found difficult more than anything, I think, is the pronunciations, because they have so many different dialects. So, and the dialects really change like the actual words. It's not like in English where you have dialects and, one person says, I don't know, like a Canadian says a boot and I say about. It's pretty much the same word. There, that like consonants and different change completely. Like in vor and kor are the same word.
Two different words. Thanks. Two different words.
But they're the exact same word, but two different dialects. So that's really, really tricky. And at my job, all of the girls that I worked with actually were Swedish. So they were speaking Swedish. So that was also a challenge. But that, and then the other big challenge, and sorry, I'm really rambling now, but the other big challenge was that in some places, like it's easy in cities, like in Oslo, it wasn't so hard speaking Norwegian as a foreigner. But if you go to more remote areas where they're not used to seeing a lot of immigrants, if your pronunciation of something is not like you were born there, they do not understand you. So they just look at you. You've probably encountered this. I've heard this from a lot of people in a lot of different countries. It's like, you want to go to a place where there are a lot of immigrants because you have leeway. English speakers tend to, I mean, somebody could come up to you and go, da, 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 and you're like, I can understand that. Your brain deciphers because you're used to hearing accents. But, you know, languages that are not spoken by that many people, the people aren't always used to hearing their language with an accent that is foreign. So they're like looking at you like you're speaking Martian. And like you order a beer, you're like, can I få en öl? And they're like, huh? Can I få en öl? And they're like, huh? And then somebody next to you goes up and goes, can I få en öl? And they're like, yeah. Pour them the beer. You're like, why?
Frustrating. I said that. I said exactly that.
I said that I'm not that bad. I swear I'm not that bad. Yeah, it's infuriating, and it definitely gets you a bit frustrated. I mean, it's not their fault at all. You know, it's just the way that it is. And then there's the fact that they always want to practice their English, and their English is superb. So you're like, I really want to practice my Norwegian. And they're like, oh, good, we can speak English. And I mean, their English is like better than my English. And I'm going, oh.
Or the other thing, you say, I want to practice my Norwegian, or I say, I want to practice my Spanish. Oh, my Spanish is pretty good, but when it was poor, and they'd say, oh, okay. And then I'd say something in very broken Spanish, and they'd realize that my Spanish was poor. And they're like, oh, this English. And then they'd get bored of trying to teach you broken is hearing you in your broken Spanish. And so they just revert to English all the time. So, but yes, but I like that explanation that you've got, that we're used to hearing English in a foreign accent. They're not. I've never thought of it that way before. So I suppose that makes me slightly less infuriated with people, because I guess that makes sense.
That's what it is. I mean, most of the time you can't say that for, you know, people in Paris, France. They're just, that's a different thing. Let me just insult all of Paris, France right now. But no, Paris is wonderful. Parisians are wonderful. But, you know, there are certain places that are known for people giving people flack for not being perfect in their language, and that do have a lot of immigrants. But I better stop talking before I say something really awful.
Like that everywhere. I said this last week on Ben's podcast, but there was a time where my Spanish was terrible. I knew it was. So I got into a taxi, and I was speaking to an Ecuadorian, and I got into a taxi and just said, no Spanish, but speak on the phone. And he spoke on the phone, and he was like, ¿Qué? English? No, speak English. And I was like, she's Ecuadorian. She's speaking Spanish to you. But because I was English, he just assumed my friend was going to be English. And then all of a sudden he couldn't understand her. No, speak Spanish. And I was like, no, she's Ecuadorian. So sometimes there are people like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah. Did you ever get yourself in trouble saying the wrong thing and being completely embarrassed about saying something wrong in Norwegian?
There are two instances. I'll try and make these slightly shorter. One is that the vowel pronunciation is really important. So if you want to say that you want to go to the toilet, you have to use the word do, which is like an oo sound. And this oo, we don't have in English, right? At all. If I hear people go ooh, 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 I think like, ooh, 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 like a monkey. I'm like, what? I don't make this sound. My mouth doesn't make that sound without like contorting itself, which feels really weird. So like any, you know, lazy English speaker, I would say do instead of do. And do is toilet and do is you. So jeg må gå på do means like I have to go. It doesn't mean I have to go on you, because that would be på deg, but it kind of is like saying I have to go on you. So that's, nobody really takes it that way, but they definitely look at you like, what? What are you saying? So there's that. And then a different kind of thing where I didn't get in trouble, but I actually got offended, not offended, but more like I felt like I was being condescended to, which was that my family had a dog. And I picked up a word before I was learning Norwegian, which was flink. And I would always hear them say, oh, du er så flink, flink, oh, flink, which I kind of thought was like, oh, good girl, good girl. And then when I started to try to learn Norwegian, and I go to a party and be like, I'm going to practice, I'm going to speak. People would go, du er så flink, flinken, oh, så flink. And they kept saying that. And I was like, geez, like these people really are not used to being polite with immigrants. Like, what is the deal? They're like, oh, look at you, clever, and, like nice. But I found out, not clever, like, but yeah, good girl. And then I found out that the word actually means clever. So it was actually a compliment. But I was going
really nice, but you were taking it as this massive.
Yeah, like that I was actually doing a terrible job. They were slightly agitated, and so just being sort of condescending.
But I think people, they understand, don't they, when you say these ridiculous, stupid things, like people, they know we're foreign, they know we're trying. I think most people appreciate it.
I think 99% of the people that I've ever encountered traveling ever have been unbelievably nice and unbelievably patient and considerate and generous. And, they go the extra mile to be interested and they don't make assumptions, and they're lovely. You get the 1% that are just like, but the rest are wonderful. They make up for it.
It has been a fantastic experience. So it's funny, I think I said to you half an hour, and we've been speaking for almost. Yeah. So my poor students, I promised my students that this would be a shorter episode. It's actually gone.
I am so sorry. I talk a lot anyway, and we're in lockdown, so I'm like, you're like, anytime I get to talk to anybody, I'm like, blah, 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 because it's like lockdown time, so.
But yeah, so for me as well, so don't apologize to me, but maybe apologize to my students.
Pardon. I'm so sorry.
So the last few questions I'm going to ask to everybody here. I'm going to share my screen again. So I want to make, of all the guests on the show, I want to make a perfect country. So I spoke to Ben last week and he's given me some things, and so I speak to you about your time in Norway. So the first question is, if we're making sort of a perfect country, first of all, can you pick one tourist spot or something beautiful that we can put in our perfect country from Norway?
Yeah, that bergen, I don't know what it's called. You had the picture of it.
Oh, the waterfront in Bergen.
Yeah, the waterfront in Bergen.
Bergen, Norway.
But you'd have to put the mountain that's behind it as well. They have 7 mountains in that area. They're so beautiful. You have to have the mountains and the waterfront.
So
Can you just put all of Bergen in there?
Oh, this is, I think, quite a nice picture.
There you go.
It's colourful, but it's got the mountain in the background.
Perfect.
I will, my computer's being a bit slow, but I will add that in. It doesn't seem to want to load. Okay, I'll write that in now and I'll add the picture up afterwards. So Bergen, waterfront and mountainside. I'm getting terrible at typing. So Bergen, waterfront and mountainside, that's from Norway. Norway. Okay, and what about a cultural norm that maybe Norwegians do that would be good?
Being close to nature, like having like a culture, like I don't know how to say it, like when you prioritize spending time with nature.
I like that. I'm going to type exactly that in. Prioritize being close. Really good one. And finally, banished people that aren't going to be allowed into this. This can be someone you know. If someone you know, just say the first name. We won't go into it in case they watch, or it can be a celebrity. So far, the two banished people are Kevin and Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell's a footballer. So
okay. Well, you know who's been grinding my gears lately? It's that Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan. I think that's going to be a popular banishing. Piers Morgan.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people will be sad about that. Sorry, Piers, but man, I don't feel sorry. You know, you say what you want, and I don't like most of it.
This is the consequence of saying what you want. You're banished.
You don't have to like me either, so that's fine.
Yeah. So Ben last week put in Sol Campbell, and I actually quite like Sol Campbell.
Who is Sol Campbell?
He's an old footballer. So I wouldn't want to ban him, but rules are rules. Sol Campbell can't come in. But Piers Morgan, I will agree with you on that. Piers Morgan is not coming in. No, he's not in. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking at length, and it's been really interesting. I'm really
Thank you.
I could easily speak for another 2 hours, but I'm conscious that my students are going to be watching this, and
go to sleep. When
they see it's an hour long, they are going to cry.
Sorry.
It's an hour long. I'm not going to watch it then. So if any of my students have made it to the end of the video, a whole hour, let me know. I'll give you a 10 in this. I'll give you a 10 out of 10. Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Okay, I'll stop recording. So thank you very much.